Did you know that some of the stars who worked in Hollywood during the Golden Age weren't exactly acting legends? That time was glitzy and exciting, full of glamour and larger-than-life characters. But not every actor or actress was a master of their trade. Their looks depended more on their charm than their skill. From Johnny Weissmuller, better known for how well he could swim than for his wooden Tarzan, to Jane Mansfield, whose success depended on how good she looked. These stars show that talent wasn't always enough to get famous. Here are the stories of 25 artists from the Golden Age who were noteworthy. Johnny Weissmuller was the worst actor who still got the most fame. Number 1. Johnny Weissmuller. Most people know Weissmuller for his role as Tarzan in movies. While he became famous for the part, his acting wasn't always great. People said that his acts were too simple and didn't have enough variety. He didn't show a lot of emotional depth or range. Instead, he depended on his strength and speed, which worked well for Tarzan's part, full of action, and his performance as the character was more about how strong they are by running through the woods and talking to animals instead of how they feel. In his lines, Weissmuller wasn't known for being very subtle in his acting. His lines were usually delivered in a simple, even stiff way with little change in tone, while this suited Tarzan's exciting, dangerous world, but it didn't let him portray other kinds of people. Because of his acting style, critics often thought he was a one-dimensional performer. Weissmuller became a star anyway, and people still remember him for his part as Tarzan. His physical charm helped him stay famous, as he could bring characters to life in an exciting way. Even though he didn't do much acting, fans of his liked how he played the famous jungle hero in a way that was uniquely his. Even though he's not known for his wide range as an actor, his roles in those movies are still important parts of movie history. Weissmuller's place in Hollywood is safe thanks to the famous role he played. Second place goes to Ed Wood, one of Hollywood's most unique and well-known directors. Number 2, Ed Wood. It seems that instead of being known for his skill, he's famous for not having any. The 1959 movie Plan 9 from Outer Space is a great example of this. There were so many bad performances and directions that Wood's roles were stiff and odd, with no real feeling or natural delivery, and his directing style often didn't make sense. He made crazy movies with cheap props, silly writing, and weak acting. Even with these flaws, Wood had a strong desire to make movies. He used whatever tools he had, was excited about his mistakes, and made a plan from them. Plan 9 from Outer Space is often called the funniest thing that was made by accident. With its collapsing sets and strange dialogue, this movie defies normal judgment and is still a cult favorite. Steve Reeves is the next famous person to think about for number 3. Steve Reeves redefined Hollywood heroes in the 1950s and 1960s and was known for having a great body. He starred in the Italian sword and sandal movies Hercules and Hercules Unchained, which made him famous. Even though Reeves wasn't a great actor, his big body and commanding presence made him perfect for epic parts. Unlike method actors like Marlon Brando and Keanu Reeves, his performances were more about physical prowess than emotional depth. He leaned on his muscular charisma to draw people in. He accepted his strengths and never said he was a dramatic actor, knowing that his attraction came from how he looked. Action stars showed that raw physicality could be more impressive than standard acting skills. Next up was Bela Lugosi, best known for his role as Dracula in the famous 1931 movie. Number 4, Bela Lugosi. He is best known for playing Dracula in the famous 1931 movie. His acting style was often faulted for not having enough depth and not adding enough complexity to the roles he played. Lugosi used big, over-the-top movements and a very dramatic voice to bring his characters to life. With his one-note playing style, Lugosi's performances often felt stiff, as if he were playing the same kind of role over and over, and his deep voice and mysterious demeanor were liked in his role as Dracula. But some reviewers said he didn't show much emotion or variety. He had a lot of different acting styles, and while his dramatic moves were memorable, they could sometimes feel too much, making it difficult for people to connect with Lugosi on a deeper level. Even though these flaws made it hard for him to be taken seriously at times, he became a star. The way he played Dracula was so powerful that it trumped any problems with the way he often played other roles. In horror movies, his dark, brooding persona was a great fit. In the end, Bela Lugosi is known for more than just acting. His performance lacked subtlety, but he was great at making larger-than-life characters that people would remember. He is a well-known and loved figure in Hollywood history thanks to his appearance in famous roles. Number 5. Sammy Davis Jr. was a famous singer, dancer, and actor who was known for how talented he was in music and performance. He sang and danced on stage, but his acting was often thought to be stiff. A lot of people thought that he didn't put as much emotion into his acting parts as he did in his musical performances. Despite this, Sammy Davis Jr. became a well-known figure because of his skills and was in the famous Rat Pack with Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. His skills, drive, and charm helped him stay in the public eye and keep his career going even though he wasn't praised for his acting. His singing and dancing skills, which made him stand out in Hollywood and earn praise, allowed him to act in many shows, from movies to music videos, even though his performances weren't always praised. People remember Sammy Davis Jr. as a true entertainer whose skills made him famous. Next was known for her part in the classic movie Vertigo. Number 6. Kim Novak. She was known for her beauty, but her acting was often called stiff and emotionless, and she wasn't known for her range. Novak became a star because of the way she looked and acted on screen. Her best-known part was in Alfred Hitchcock's classic movie Vertigo, in which she played a complicated character. Even though she wasn't very good at acting, her beautiful looks and mysterious aura made her unforgettable. Novak's good looks and charm caught the attention of the crowd. She was beautiful and drew people in, which worked well for the parts she played in Hollywood. She got jobs that were more about how she looked than how well she could act, even though critics didn't always like her work. Novak's work as an actress took off because she was such a big star in the 1950s and 1960s. She was a Hollywood star, and many people remember her as one of the most famous actors of her time. Vertigo is still one of her best-known movies and showed that even when she was acting stiff, she could make a big difference. 7. Gregory Peck. Gregory Peck was one of the most famous and loved stars in Hollywood. He became well known for his strong personality and good looks in movies like To Kill a Mockingbird and Roman Holiday, but not everyone liked the way he played the part. Some reviewers thought that his performances lacked emotional depth and that he relied too much on his good looks and power. He had a charisma that didn't come from showing a lot of feelings or complicated personality traits. Some people thought that Peck didn't always give the kind of nuanced performances that other actors did. People often said that his performing style was steady and reliable, but they said he cared too much about his image and not enough about showing the character depth they said he could have shown. Despite these criticisms, Gregory Peck's fame and respect were solid because of how hard he worked on his parts and how authoritative he was on screen at all times. At the time, he became famous for playing good guys like Atticus Finch in To Kill a Mockingbird, which made him a stand-in for honesty and justice. Even though some people thought his acting style wasn't very good, he had a strong screen personality and was known as a leading man, which held him at the top of Hollywood for many years. Next on the list was number 8, Bing Crosby. Bing Crosby was a singer who was known for his singing, especially with his smooth voice and old hits like White Christmas. There was a lot of applause for his music, but not so much for his acting. People often said it was stiff, wasn't very exciting, and he wasn't known as a great actor, but his musical skills and charm kept him in the spotlight. Crosby was in a lot of movies, but Holiday Inn and Going My Way were his most well-known parts, where he sang more than acted, even though he wasn't very good at acting. People loved him because of his smooth speech, friendly personality, and ability to connect with his fans, which made him a star in Hollywood and beyond. Even though he wasn't very good at acting, he made up for it with his singing and became one of the biggest stars of his time. While Crosby wasn't known for being a great actor, his legacy goes on through the songs he sang, which are still famous today. His influence on music and movies made him an important part of Hollywood's history. Number 9 in the golden age is Clint Eastwood. Eastwood became a huge action star. 19. Clint Eastwood. Known for playing tough guys in movies like Dirty Harry, but when he first started acting, his parts were often seen as stiff and emotionless because he didn't show a lot of range or feeling in the parts he played. He had a strong, quiet personality, and his characters were usually calm and serious. He wasn't emotional, which made him seem far away from or unrelated to the story's feelings. This stern style became a trademark of Eastwood's style, and fans came to love his tough, unwavering screen personality. His early movies didn't have any deep or complex acting, but he was able to stay calm and controlled in situations with a lot of stress, which made him stand out. People were drawn to his calm demeanor. As his career went on, Eastwood's strength made him a great choice for parts that needed a strong, silent hero. As time went on, his acting got better, and he became known for more than just his tough exterior. He became an actor who could show a wider range of emotions in his roles, especially in more dramatic ones. But it was still his early roles in which he depended on his stern personality that made him a Hollywood star. Up next is known as number 10, Lucille Ball, a comedic genius who is known for her great sense of humor and her part in the famous TV show I Love Lucy. Her comedic skills are praised by many, but some reviewers felt her acting was sometimes too dramatic. Lucille's charm, timing, and the fact that she was big, loud, and full of energy made some people think she wasn't subtle enough. Being able to make people laugh won her fans and made her a famous person. She had a unique sense of humor that set her apart from other actresses of the time. She could make even the most ordinary events funny. Getting into a mess with her best friend or making trouble in her own life was always funny. In her home, Lucille could make ordinary things seem special and funny. Even though she often went over the top with her acting, it worked great for the roles she played. She stood out because of her personality and funny facial movements, which made her fun to watch. Even though some people didn't think she was funny, she could make them laugh for no reason. In TV and movies, Lucille Ball became a star because of how subtle her acting was. Lucille Ball, who had a gift for making people laugh and gave unforgettable performances, will go down in entertainment history. Ball was one of the best and most loved stars of all time. Number 11, Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford was a well-known actress who was known for her roles in melodramas, where she often played very emotional characters. Her beauty and strong presence on screen were often attacked, and many people thought her performances were over the top and lacked subtlety, and she didn't always show the depth of feeling that other actors did. It seemed like Crawford's acting in movies was too much. Her style was often dramatic, with big movements and loud emotional displays. This worked well for the over-the-top parts she played, except for movies where the feelings were meant to be strong. Other than those kinds of movies, critics and audiences sometimes thought her acting was too much and didn't feel natural. They also thought she didn't always connect with the subtlety that more method actors displayed. Even though these things were said, Joan Crawford had a long and successful career as an actress. During her career, she became a Hollywood star known for her beautiful looks and ability to make people laugh. And people still remember her from movies like Mildred Pierce, for which she won an Oscar, which showed that her unique personality made a difference, even though some people thought her acting style was too dramatic. While she wasn't known for quiet, modest roles, her bold style worked for many of the movies she was in. Her parts made her one of the most well-known actresses of her time. 12. Jack Benny. Jack Benny was famous for always being funny and having a quick mind. It was his jokes and funny moments that made people laugh. He wasn't known for being a deep actor, and his performances sometimes fell flat. His acting was simple, and he didn't show a lot of feeling. But what Benny lacked in depth, he made up for with his natural charm and sense of humor. Benny could make people laugh with just a certain look or pause, which set him apart. Because of this, he became well known. Benny's shows, especially his popular radio show and later his TV show, often had a funny style, clever writing, funny situations, and his own brand of humor that people loved. Even though his acting wasn't the most emotional or complicated, he was very funny, which made him one of the most adored people in show business. Jack Benny had a unique way of connecting with people, and his dry humor became his signature. He wasn't good at deep acting. Instead, he was good at making people laugh with funny lines and timing. His humor lives on through his funny jokes, and he's still known as one of the funniest performers of all time. Next up was one of Hollywood's biggest stars, known for his roles in movies like Casablanca and The Maltese Falcon. 13. Humphrey Bogart. For many years, Humphrey Bogart was seen as a movie star. A lot of critics said Bogart focused too much on his tough, no-nonsense persona instead of showing feelings or characters with a lot of depth. In most of the parts he played, Bogart played tough guys who were always in charge and never lost their cool. This made him famous, but it also sometimes made his performances seem flat. He wasn't known for having a lot of emotional depth or variety. Even though he played a lot of different parts, he stuck to a similar style throughout his career. He was a well-liked person in Hollywood, and people didn't mind that he didn't use a method or have a wide range of emotions. Instead, they loved him. People will never forget him for how he carried himself and how strong and powerful he was on screen in every part he played. Bogart may not have been praised for being able to play a lot of different roles, but his tough guy image made him famous. People loved him for who he was, making him one of the major stars of his time. Those roles are what make him one of Hollywood's legends. 14. Rita Hayworth. Rita Hayworth was one of Hollywood's biggest stars because of how beautiful and graceful she was on screen. She was often cast in glamorous parts and played the same kind of character in many movies. But her acting got people's attention with her beautiful looks. But some critics said her acting wasn't very varied. They said she played the same parts over and over. She played an attractive woman in many movies, but she never got to show off all of her acting skills. It was clear that Hayworth had star power. She was one of the most famous actors of her time. She became well known for her parts in movies like Gilda and CoverGirl. People loved her beauty and dancing skills, and her performances helped define the golden age of Hollywood. Even though critics didn't always notice Rita Hayworth's acting ability in film was important. She became a symbol of beauty and style, and she was very famous. She stayed strong throughout her career, even though she might have gotten flack for not playing different kinds of roles. Even though she played different roles, she had a long effect on Hollywood, and her legacy as a glamorous leading lady lives on. 13. Rock Hudson. Rock Hudson was one of Hollywood's hottest guys in the 1950s and 1960s. With his good looks and tall, athletic build, he quickly became a moviegoer favorite, especially in romances. People often said that Hudson's acting was flat and lacked depth. However, Hudson's beauty could not be denied. He came across as magnetic on screen, which made him stand out. But many reviewers felt that his acting was stiff and that he depended more on his good looks than his acting skills. His performances were often a bit stiff, and he didn't show as many emotions as actors of the same time, like Marlon Brando or James Dean, brought to their parts. Hudson's roles were often more about how he looked than any real emotional connection. He had a lot of parts in early movies. In romance movies where he played the good-looking, strong lead, he was often paired with beautiful women like Doris Day, and Hudson and Day were a famous pair because of how well they got along. Hudson's good looks helped him get these parts, but his acting skills didn't stand out as much over time. He tried to get parts in more types of movies, like comedies and action movies. While he had some success, he was never quite praised by reviewers as much as other actors were. His popularity with audiences stayed high, and he remained a big star through the 1960s and beyond. Hudson's success changed when he came out as gay in the 1970s, something that most people didn't know about him for most of his life. But his fame stayed with him through his work. This made him less of a star and less able to charm people. People still remember him for how good he looked, even though his acting wasn't as good as some of his peers. Even though Hudson wasn't the best actor, he will always be known as a big figure in Hollywood stars. Number 16. Jayne Mansfield. Jayne Mansfield was one of the most well-known actors of the 1950s and 1960s. She became a Hollywood star because of how beautiful she was. She was nicknamed a bombshell because of her golden blonde hair and glitzy appearance. Some people said that Mansfield looked a lot like Marilyn Monroe, but she was very different from those other stars. But when it came to acting, she wasn't as good. Many reviewers said her performances were too dramatic, and she didn't show much emotion. Instead of giving her roles depth, she was known for playing them in parts that were more about how she looked than how well she could act. Her performances were sometimes seen as too good to be true. too many emotional scenes and responses that didn't seem real in Mansfield's performance. Her style didn't always have the subtlety that actors like Audrey Hepburn and Elizabeth Taylor were known for. Her parts were often one-dimensional, and she had a hard time showing that her characters had different sides to get rid of the dumb blonde stereotype that Hollywood put on her. Even so, she had a great career in Hollywood in the 1950s and 1960s. She was in a number of movies, such as The Girl Can't Help It, 1956. She was a comedic actor in Will Success Spoil Rock Hunter, 1957, which made her famous. Most of the movies she was in were comedies or musicals, and her beauty and charm stole the show. Mansfield became famous, even though she wasn't known for being a great actor. Her fame wasn't just for acting, her movie parts, but also about how she came across to the public. She became a well-liked figure because of her public life, the clothes she wore, and the risks she took. It's not just about Jane Mansfield's acting in Hollywood in the end. It's about how she used her good looks, attitude, and charm to make a lasting impact on the movie business and pop culture. Number 17, Victor Mature. During Hollywood's golden age, Victor Mature was a famous actor who was known for playing big, epic parts. Acting in adventure movies like Samson and Delilah and The Robe gave him the chance to play strong, heroic parts. He was a well-known leading man who was admired for being tall and good-looking. Mature had a strong screen personality, but critics didn't always like how he played himself. People thought his acting was flat. He wasn't known for giving his parts a lot of emotion or depth. His acting style was often seen as simple and straightforward, not bringing out the depth of his roles. Critics pointed out that he didn't always show a lot of range and that his roles often seemed emotionally flat. In scenes, his responses seemed a little forced or like they weren't really mature. Being an actor wasn't bad, but it didn't stand out like some of his peers. He often relied on his good looks and physical presence rather than really feeling what the people he played felt. Victor, despite this, was more popular for his looks and the parts he played than for how he played them. In spite of not getting credit for his work, Mature was still a big star. Since he had a lot of emotional depth, he was a good fit for parts that were popular at the time. Putting him in movies that showed how strong or heroic he was while his playing, even though he wasn't the most complex or award-winning. The fact that he was a leading man in Hollywood during its golden age helped him keep working for a long time, even though he wasn't praised for his emotional range or the parts he played. The roles he played made him a popular figure in movie history. People still remember him for how he looked and how he acted on screen, even if not all critics liked how he played his parts. The next famous person on the list is Loretta Young, who was a well-known actress known for her glamorous parts in movies and was known for being beautiful and classy because of her good looks and charm, but not always for how well she could act. A lot of people thought her acts were stiff and lacked emotion. They called her acting wooden, which means it was often flat and didn't show much feeling or depth, even though she was famous and had roles in many movies. Some people thought she didn't really connect with her characters because she leaned on her graceful looks and style, which were enough to make people fall in love with her beauty. Her looks were a big part of her draw, but they often stole the show instead of her acting skills. Despite the criticism, Loretta Young worked in Hollywood for a long time and is still known as one of the stars of her era. Even though her acting wasn't always the best, she was always a sight to see on screen, and her classic beauty made an impact on fans and filmmakers that will last. 19. Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney was a child actor who became an adult star. When he was a kid, he was very well known for his lively performances. But as he got older, his playing style was known for being exaggerated and a little too much, and his roles often lacked subtlety. Reviewers thought he would do this, and some thought his acting was too loud, or even though this was serious, Mickey Rooney's energy and charm kept him in the spotlight. People were drawn to him because of his lively personality, and they seemed to enjoy his high-energy performances. And even though some people didn't think his acting was very good, he was always fun to watch. Rooney has been in a lot of movies over the years, and he usually plays the same kind of happy, energetic character. Making movies more exciting made him a well-liked figure in Hollywood, even though his playing style wasn't for everyone. But he kept getting popular and became one of the most famous stars of his time. During his long career, Rooney had a unique energy that made him stand out. He wasn't known for being quiet, though. A famous actor who played many lead parts in Hollywood was the next celebrity that many people will never forget. 21. Glenn Ford. Glenn Ford was a famous actor who had many lead parts in Hollywood. You could count on him. People knew they could always count on him to be in movies, but his playing wasn't always praised. People often thought his acts were stiff and emotionless, and he didn't always connect with people's deeper feelings because his roles were so complicated. It was hard for him to get the praise that other artists did for, despite the fact that he wasn't particularly good at acting. Ford was still well-liked by viewers. He was strong on screen and often played the charming and heroic leading man. His movies did well because of being able to carry a movie, even if his acting wasn't always groundbreaking or memorable. Ford was very good at playing cool-headed people, which helped him in many parts. Most of the time, though, critics said he didn't show enough passion or act in a way that would make him stand out from other stars. But Ford still had a long career in Hollywood, showing that if an actor wasn't known for being the most reliable or consistent, they could still become a star by being those things. 21. Vincent Price. Vincent Price was famous for his scary and dramatic parts in horror movies. He took on villains who were often creepy and had an over-the-top style that made him stand out. But a lot of people didn't like his playing because it was so theatrical. Instead of giving subtle performances, Price's roles were often big and dramatic, which some people who watched him didn't always like how casual his acting was. But his unique style made him stand out. He made an unforgettable screen appearance and had a unique voice and delivery, which made him more appealing, especially in movies like House of Wax and The Fly. Some people thought that his style was too much, but it worked great for the scary, larger-than-life characters he played. Vincent Price's career in horror movies got mixed reviews, but he played a lot of scary parts in movies for decades because of his skill at building tension and suspense with his performances. He was a well-liked figure in the horror film field because of his unique style. People will always remember him as a legend, even if some reviewers thought his performances were too much at times. He wasn't praised for his subtle acting, but his presence and contribution to the horror genre will be remembered for a long time. He was next known for his parts in movies like True Grit and The Searchers. John Wayne. John Wayne was a famous actor who was loved for his parts in Western thrillers. He became a Hollywood legend, but his acting wasn't always great. He got bad reviews. People said his acts were stiff and lacked emotional depth instead of showing a lot of different emotions, and he often played tough, honest figures who stuck to one basic idea. A lot of people thought he relied too much on his strong screen presence and great voice, not so much on giving complicated, multi-layered performances. Even though Wayne's acting wasn't always praised, didn't go away. People loved his tough guy image and his parts in great movies. He was a sign of strength and respect for a certain type of American, like True Grit and The Searchers. Hero. His characters often faced problems with determination, and he never seemed afraid to deal with tough conditions. Many people liked him as an actor, even though he didn't have a lot of different roles. Wayne's simplicity and consistency did well in his parts. He didn't need to show a lot of different emotions. His performance may not have been very deep, but that was enough to make him one of the biggest stars of his time. Wayne has always been well-liked and important in Hollywood. Number 23. Tab Hunter. Tab Hunter was a popular bad boy in the 1950s, known more for his good looks than his acting. He was in over 40 movies, including Battle Cry and Damn Yankees, and he quickly became a favorite among young fans thanks to his good looks and calm demeanor. He became a star because of how calm he was, but reviewers often said that they thought his acting lacked emotional depth. He had a pretty face but wasn't very good at acting, and Range Hunter didn't show up in many of his roles. He had a lot of roles like that, which made it hard for him to break out of the hero mold he wanted to be in. He took acting seriously, but many of his parts were too similar, and it was hard for him to move on to new ones. 22. John Wayne. Dramatic critics praised parts, but that didn't change the fact that he was always popular with young people. Tab Hunter had a big effect on Hollywood in the 1950s, even though his acting wasn't always praised. He became an icon of the era, and his good looks and charm made him one of the biggest stars of his time. People still remember him as one of the most important teen idols of the 1950s, and his impact and role in pop culture live on. Next famous person on the list became a big star after his part in the movie Shane, 1953, Alan Ladd. Alan Ladd was a well-liked actor in the 1940s and 1950s who was known for his good looks and calm demeanor. Even though he was shy, he became a big star after playing Shane in the movie Shane, 1953, which led to a Photoplay Award and made him famous in Hollywood. But many reviewers didn't think much of his work, even though he was famous. Some people thought he wasn't very good at acting because he often seemed flat and emotionless, especially in sad parts. That guy was successful not because he was a good actor, but because he was tough. Fans, on the other hand, loved his quiet, strong presence on screen, even though Ladd wasn't known for showing a lot of feeling. The way he acted made him stand out. There were other leading men of his time who often played roles that were more serious or emotional than Ladd's, often showed toughness and strength through their actions instead of words. His career brings up an interesting question. Did Alan Ladd change the way people thought about leading men in movies, even though he wasn't very good at it? People always said how calm and strong he was, which made him a star. His part in Shane is still known as one of his best. The last star on our list who is one of his best is number 25, Jean Harlow. Jean Harlow, who was known as the Blonde Bombshell, was a famous actor in the 1930s. She was in more than 40 movies, including the great Red Dust and Dinner at 8. She became a big star very quickly because of how beautiful she was and how strong she was on screen. However, reviewers didn't always like her acting at first. Many thought she overacted in some of her roles. Even so, Harlow worked, even though her performances seemed over the top. She worked hard to get better over time. She became known for having great comedy timing, which helped her win more fans. Hollywood will always remember Jean Harlow as an actress, even though she never won any big awards. She changed the way people thought about beautiful movie stars for a long time, and she became a symbol of Hollywood's golden age. She made movie stars look like they did, and her influence on the business is still felt today. People still remember Jean Harlow as a Hollywood star, even though she may not have gotten the praise she deserved from critics.